Yes, I have a question, rather a scenario. Let's say a teenager gets pregnant and she really does not want the baby, and she's basically on her way to mental insanity. Now, could we just, instead of aborting the baby, which is killing it, well, whatever, just killing it, period, could we just remove it from her? Let's say remove from the uterus or whatever, fallopian tube. Because I know, yes, you said earlier, if the fallopian tube was getting enlarged, we could cut the fallopian tube and remove it, and remove the fetus. Now, can that be taken as the same concept, or just remove it?
Good question. In that situation, first of all, one of the points I mentioned about that is that's still being debated by ethicists as to whether it's ethical or unethical. But the idea in that situation is we're going to try to preserve both lives. So in that situation, we really hope and want the technology upon removing that embryo to be able to keep the embryo alive. In this other case where the embryo is, or fetus, whatever age the baby's at, is in the environment she should be in and has a right to, the uterus, to simply remove the child because it's an inconvenience for me because of psychological issues going on isn't addressing the medical problem. I need to see a counselor, a psychotherapist, behavioral therapy, psychology, any of those number of things to address that. So in the case of the salpingostomy, of opening the fallopian tube, that is what I'm doing. I'm not killing the child. I'm addressing the medical crisis, which is the expansion of the fallopian tube. In the case of mental instability or problems with pregnancy, the solution is to address that medical condition, which is to give her the psychological therapy that she needs, not remove the child from the environment the child naturally should be in. You see, the child naturally shouldn't be in the fallopian tube, and a number of factors can influence ectopic pregnancy, but one of them is something wrong with the tube itself, in the function of the tube or the structure of the tube that got the embryo lodged there. But if the child is in the uterus and all is going well, it's doing what it should be doing. So to simply remove the child, which is going to risk the child's life upon removal, it could die if it's not at term. Well, we can't do that. We have to address her mental instability.
Yeah, I was curious, I guess, to your opinion on, contraception, or the idea that if we were, instead of to promote pro-lifeness, to promote using safe sex instead and avoiding the whole idea of abortion altogether, don't you think that maybe the money would be better spent instead of, I feel like if I was, anti-abortion, or I would be easier to be swayed into practicing safe sex, and instead of going straight to being, pro-life, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
Good question. The issue of safe sex, one thing to consider is what's so unsafe about sex inherently, what's unsafe about it. But anyways, that's an aside. The issue of safe sex is another matter to debate. But that's not what our organization is here for today. And if you poll different people representing our organization, you're going to get a different opinion from people, perhaps, in what they think about abstinence-only education versus sex education. What we're here in unity about today is that it's wrong to directly and intentionally kill preborn human beings, all human beings, and make the point that the preborn child is a human being like the rest of us. So it would be sort of like if I was here educating you about the genocide in Darfur, and you saying, well, your time could be better spent educating about the Rwandan genocide and what happened historically. In both situations, we need to look at history and we need to look at what's happening presently, but if someone chooses to focus on one issue today, it doesn't mean there's no other issues to discuss. So, yes, have a healthy debate about contraception and whether it's right and whether it's wrong, but what we're here about today is to also have a healthy debate about another issue we need to talk about, the one we have unity about as an organization, and that is when does life begin and is abortion wrong? I can take one more question, and then our time on the open mic is over.
What exactly is
so,
the point of your organization other than to talk about?
Sorry, the guy's got the microphone behind you, and it's his chance to ask a question. So we can certainly dialogue one-on-one afterwards, but we'll take one more question.
Okay, I just think that your point of view is very idealized, and that we actually live in a world where there's already too many starving and children and too many people who aren't cared for, too much of an overload on the foster system, and that even if we can agree that they are an alive baby that we're killing, isn't it better off for the society as a whole not to put a greater burden on an already taxed system by if all the people that have been aborted are now in foster care, it would be extremely more overloaded, and then all these people would be living in an extremely low-class, miserable state of life, even more so than the ones who are already burdened by it in the first place. And so I feel like this is a necessary evil that keeps the misery, the human misery that these people have to suffer at a minimalization by not putting them through it in the first place. Both the parent and the child. The child who has to suffer through it because the mom happened to have her at the wrong time, and both the mom who's in school and has to ruin her life by dropping out of school, getting a job, and all of a sudden focusing on a baby. It seems like it's ruining two lives to save a life that is going to be living in misery anyways, most of the time.
With regards to your question, I think we can both agree that difficult life circumstances exist. What it sounds like we're going to debate is what's an ethical response versus an unethical response to those difficult life circumstances. If the preborn child is truly human like you and me, and you're saying because of a life of suffering we may kill her, then it would follow that all these children in the foster care system you're referring to who are in troubled homes and not being treated well, that they be killed to address their suffering. In fact, one could argue, let's kill them, but not have abortions. Let's start fresh, you know? They say the first 3 years of a child's life are most important for the development of that child, so let's kill all the children currently being mistreated in foster care and start fresh and really properly care for babies in the womb and after the womb, especially in the first 3 years, and then we'll really fix things. But we would never say that because we recognize in the face of hardship and challenges, we need to address the problems without eliminating the very people who are experiencing those problems. So that's ultimately our message is life isn't going to be easy. There's going to be challenges, but can we bring good out of those challenges? Can we see an obstacle and say, I'm going to overcome the obstacle instead of being overtaken by it? Can we live in a culture that says, in the face of challenges, I consider you to be of such value and such worth and have such great dignity that I may inconvenience my own life in order to do my best to improve yours. One final... But that's what we challenge people to do, right? I mean, if you look at all the problems in the world, if we view killing as a solution to them, I think we're going to continue to have problems. It comes down to, are we going to respect someone's life so much that we work to improve their life? I mean, you talk about, you know, if you have a child in these inconvenient circumstances, the child is doomed to a life of horror. That's actually making the assumption that everyone who's raised in a poor set of circumstances is going to have a horrible life. That's a horrible assumption to make. My dad grew up in an extremely poor family in Scotland during the war with 8 siblings where my grandfather wasn't home a lot because he was constantly away working to make what money he could for his wife and his children. And my dad has made the best of his life and done wonderful things for my family, got married, had children like myself and my sister. It all comes down to we all face challenges. Look at Oprah Winfrey. Like her or not, she was someone who was sexually abused. She was someone who was raised in poverty and made something for herself. So instead of having this defeatist attitude, you're poor, I'm going to kill you. Why can't it be, you're poor, I'm going to help you. And you know what? You're probably going to help me. Because I may have a lot of material wealth, but I bet you anything you've got spiritual wealth. You know, Mother Teresa looked at North America, and she said, you know, my people are materially poor, but your people are spiritually poor. And if you travel overseas and you work with people who have nothing, you will discover very quickly that they have everything. And maybe we're lacking in our lives. And if we start to serve them, guess what? We're going to find our lives fulfilled beyond imagining.